Welcome back to the Sunday Supplement. A very good morning to you. Fergie says it's going to be the most exciting Premier League race of all. Is he right, Neil Ashton? For that, I presume that Spurs will have to maintain City challenge. Let's start with Spurs. No shortage of money at Manchester City. No. Throwing as much as they can, anybody. A lot of foreign imports. I did suggest in a column that it's one of the reasons why there's the lack of growth of English players. They got absolutely slaughtered for it by Manchester City fans. But can you buy the title? Can you buy your way into the top four like that?
Well, yeah, of course you can. If you look back
through
the
those
history,
players,
it depends who you buy, obviously.
Have they bought the right players to do what they want?
Well, I'm not sure they have, because I expect this week that the James Milner deal will go through. Now, he's a good, solid English-style midfielder who will be an addition to the squad. But to me, James Milner's not going to make the difference between winning the Premier League and finishing in the top four. Similarly, the kid Balotelli from Inter Milan. He's an undoubted talent, got lots of skill, but he's got a terrible attitude. Mourinho banished him from the Inter team because he just was a sulk. He'd go on the pitch, and if things didn't go his way, his head was down. So I think when you're signing players, you have to look into their background and their mentality. And I think he's got a sort of chip on his shoulder personality, Balotelli, so he could be more trouble than he's worth. And it's surprising that if he is such a great talent, the European champions Inter Milan are prepared to sell him. I remember when Chelsea first got all this money, it was a bit of a scattergun approach. They were throwing millions of pounds around, and not all of it was spent wisely. Part of it was because they expected Sven-Göran Eriksson to become the manager, so they went and signed Juan Sebastian Veron and Hernan Crespo, and then suddenly Mourinho turns up, and they weren't sort of Mourinho-style players. And then there was Adrian Mutu, talk about a player with great talent but with a bad mentality. He self-destructed at Chelsea, so suddenly you find yourself, you spend the best part of 50-60 million quid on players, and they don't measure up and don't make the difference. Yeah. I think Chelsea succeeded sometimes in spite of the money that was spent, like the £30 million on Andrei Shevchenko when he shot his bolt as a top striker. It was more to do with the brilliance of Mourinho and his ability to forge that's the winning mentality within a group of players than it was the millions that Abramovich squandered, if you like, on players. And I fear Man City are going the same road as Chelsea. They're going up there and buying, we'll have him, we'll have him, we'll have him, we'll have him, and we'll end up with a great team. Well, it's not that easy. Like that, talk to Real Madrid about it.
The squad will be a problem though. With Chelsea, they could have played anybody in that era, but now there's a 25-man squad, and Manchester City far.
You've got Adebayor, who's just gone there. It looks like he's through the door.
Superfluous, isn't it?
Yeah. So you're suddenly going to be. You've signed all these players, and where are you going to play them all?
Is it a concern for you, Sam, how much they're spending on the players? Now, by that I mean £160,000 a week, and I think it goes up to £210,000 for Torre, doesn't it, as well?
Well, I think it contributes to this sort of fractured relationship that people and supporters have with footballers when they see. And Neil did a story about Yaya Touré's contract, and I think his net salary is
about 160,000 a week net.
And I think that combined with the disappointment from the World Cup, I think a lot of people find that just difficult to understand. And yes, I know that these guys are incredible athletes, and they play in an industry which earns a lot of money, which has a lot of income. But I think a lot of supporters find that difficult to comprehend, that sort of money. So, and also that brings with it its own pressures. And I think Rob's right. Mourinho used to spend all his time telling us, listen, this Chelsea's success under me is not about Abramovich's money. It's not all about Abramovich's money. It's about the way I'm managing this club as well. And one day you'll realise that. And he was right, because Manchester City, every season they go without a trophy, are demonstrating just how well Mourinho did. A, handling an owner who had ideas of his own about how football should be played, and B, the expectation that comes with spending all that money. Yes,
I mean, Mourinho has proved exactly right, but do you see problems at City keeping all those players happy, for instance? He's got such a big squad now.
Yeah, I mean, and it's the churn. I mean, not just Adebayor, or Roque Santa Cruz looks like he's going to leave as well. These are players
he hardly got a kick last season.
Exactly. So, and there's part of me that's a little bit sad when I see the likes of Anua, Richards, Stephen Ireland. I mean, well, I'm talking about those specifically because they're academy players from Manchester City who are just not getting You know, it looks like they're just not going to get a look in. Ireland looks like he'll go as part of the Milner deal. I think that's a bit of a shame. Manchester City have got every right. They have this money. They've got the right to spend it. They've got the right to challenge the elite, and that's in a way is a good thing. I just think that at some point you actually have to have something to show for all these tens of millions of pounds that you've spent.
Well, that puts pressure on the manager.
Exactly, and in the end, we go back to the Mourinho thing. It's all very well saying you can buy the title. Yes, you can to an extent, but you need someone who's a strong enough personality to handle the owner, handle the fans, handle the pressure from us in the press, and also manage these players. And Mancini's got a wonderful opportunity this season, but if he doesn't win anything this year, I'm afraid the terms are that that's not good enough.
Have you been surprised that there's not been more action in the transfer market? I'm not talking about City, I'm talking about generally. Are we still in a waiting zone here?
I think we're waiting because every time the market's overheating with Manchester City and the money that they can spend on players. So when they've got an interest in a player and when another club has got an interest in the same player, they know that Manchester City can just blow them out of the water. I think that happened with Chelsea and James Milner. I think they would quite like to have bought him. But when City are spending £24 million on a player who's never won a Premier League title and has played for, so far, Leeds, Newcastle, Aston Villa, with varying degrees of success, and isn't even an established England starter, the clubs just can't compete with that. So I think they're waiting. Manchester City's spending is almost over, isn't it, with the Milner deal, Balotelli. They'd like to bring David Luiz in from Benfica, but I don't think the player at his age feels that it's the right move for him, so that's unlikely to happen for him.
And some will have to go, surely.
Well, look at the midfield.
You've got about
World
four
Cup
holding
finalists
players
in Nigel de Jong, Vincent Kompany, who will probably play centre half, but has played centre midfield. Milner will be coming in, Gareth Barry, Ireland, okay, he's going to Aston Villa. But that midfield with Sean Wright-Phillips, Adam Johnson, Craig Bellamy. Craig Bellamy would love to join Tottenham, but the problem there is that Manchester City now don't want to be seen or feel that they're strengthening their rivals, which leaves Bellamy in a very difficult, but leaves him in limbo, really.
There's no way that Tottenham would pay Bellamy's wages. I mean,
no, they're talking about going on loan to Spurs and back again.
Yeah, I mean, City have inflated the wage market. That's the other thing. Yeah. So a player who's got 3 years left on his contract at City, he's going to say, well, what do I do? Take a 40 grand pay cut, or do I see this contract out? And it distorts the market.
Yeah. You can see a scenario where if things don't go well, that Mancini's out of work by bonfire night, without a shadow of a doubt, because these guys have shown how ruthless they were. The way they treated Mark Hughes on that final day is just unbelievable. They're ruthless, they're desperate for success, they've spent their money, they want somebody to deliver. And come November, early November, if they're off the pace, they'll get somebody else in to push it on.
I suspect he knows that, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
And the Premier League kick-off is only